Hola, ¿qué tal? Muy buenos días. Bienvenidos a este streaming de nuevo aquí en el 17 Festival Internacional de Cine de Monterrey. El día de hoy estamos con el director israelí Ron Omer, el director de la película Rain in Her Eyes, Lluvia en sus ojos. Vamos a tener la oportunidad de platicar con él. Les recuerdo que las películas están disponibles en Cinepolis Click, incluido este documental. Están disponibles del 19 al 29 de agosto y son libres de fee, entonces pueden verla sin problemas. And I would like to introduce you. How are you, Ron?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, how are you? How is
I'm
everything
good.
over?
I'm talking to you from Tel Aviv, from my editing room, and I'm very excited to be with you.
Thank you. We're so excited to have you here. We loved your documentary film, and I would like to get people familiar with the subject, with the personal subject of your mother, a very prolific writer. What can you tell us about the documentary?
So I'm the director of the film, and I'm first of all the son of the Dvorah Omer, the hero of the film, and I'm a film editor. I never directed the film before. I didn't had any plans to direct a film. I really liked the silence of the editing room. But one day when my daughter, she was on the second grade, she came home from school and she told me, you know, Dad, none of the kids in my class know who Dvorah Omer is. And she was very disappointed because she grew up on the stories about her grandmother, about my mother. My mother was the most famous children and youth author in Israel during the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. She wrote 98 books, and there was no house in Israel that they didn't have on the shelf, on the bookshelf, the books of my mother. Most of the kids during those years grew up reading my mother books. And now we're in 2021, and kids these days doesn't know who my mother was. And I was very sad about it. And then I decided that I should make a film about her. So maybe through the film, the next generation can know her books, know her story. And you know, when I dived into the story, I understood that it's such a great story that I must make the film. And I'm very curious to hear from you. How is it to see a film about a character you don't know anything about, you didn't grow about on her books? So I'm very curious to know how the film impacted the Mexican audience who watched it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a very, as you said, a very unique story that kind of, I don't know, even the title makes you kind of think of, oh, who is this woman, and her gaze was always so mysterious. And so at least I enjoyed the documentary very much. It was amazing to be familiarized, and that's the reason that we also wanted to talk to you and know about. You knew her firsthand, and you talked during the film, like you address the story as your own. You know, your family as part of her story, and that's something that really stands out.
I want to tell you that at the beginning, when I started working on the film, I didn't know what kind of film I'm going to make. And so you can understand how far I was from the way I finished the film. In the first shooting day, I was doing the interview with my father. And before we start rolling the camera, I told him, Dad, when you talk about Mom, don't say mom, say Dvora Omer. So I can be a director behind a camera that's making a film about the famous author Dvora Omer. But I immediately, afterwards understood that it's completely nonsense because I'm the son, I'm the director, and it must be through my perspective. And it became a very personal film, as you saw. And my family was beside me, and I knew that I must tell a story not on a great author, a perfect author, to bring Academy people to talk about her brilliant writing. I understood that, like she wrote on characters, and she wrote about the pains and the defects and the scratches, I must do as well. And I believe this is what makes the film touch hearts of people.
Yeah, because you're talking about a mother figure. You're not talking about this in a way that probably a fanatic would have done, or someone that really specializes in literature would have done. It's more um, a dialogue between family, remembering moments, and all of that, and it's very endearing. It's very a beautiful, beautiful documentary. And something I was curious about, and this is probably out of context here in Mexico, but the accident related to your grandmother's death um, during a military training. That is something that doesn't happen here. Like women, I don't know, that really, is that something that all women have to do, or is it something that was out of the ordinary?
I'll explain you. The accident, the shooting accident, it occurred before the establishment of the State of Israel. It was during the British mandate on Israel. I don't know if you know, but before the establishment of the independent country of Israel, the British ruled the state of Israel. And the Israeli settlements, the Jews, they knew that they want to have their own state, and they should be prepared, and they should be trained with arms, because all the Arab countries around, there was a big option that they're gonna start a war against the just born country. So yes, women, men, even kids in the age of 15, 16, they trained with weapons. And it was a big secret, because if the British would know about these trainings, they're going to arrest everybody. So this is what was leading to the big mystery of my mother, the big mystery of her life, because of the secrets. Everybody knew that they have to keep the training a secret, and she was 11, and she was very afraid to ask what really happened to my mother. And in those days, we're talking about the 40s, the early 40s, none of the grown-up thought that maybe 11 years old kid, she mixed up, she doesn't understand, and she was all alone with those horrific questions.
Right. Yeah, that sort of reminds me of kind of the struggle that comes from innocence and the time of that time of your life. Like when you think about kids these days, as you were saying, and what happens at 11 at this age is very, like, the generational difference is huge. So it's really interesting to see just how much that can influence someone into writing and into being a prolific author, and to sort of deal with that in a creative way. And something that's really beautiful in the documentary is actually you and your family describing her creative process a little bit. So I would love to know more about about that.
Before that, I want to just mention that I knew her story. We all knew her story as we were young, and I didn't discover anything new. But while doing this documentary, but what I did discover is my mother. She wrote about all her books are about heroic figures in the Zionist movement who helped to create the state of Israel, but she kept writing about the kids of those heroes that paid a big price uh, for their parents' dream to have a country. And my
Mhm.
mother, I believe this is the way she cured her soul, by writing again and again and again about those kids that left alone because their mother or father had to fight or to go to do some things in order to have this dream come true, to have the Israeli country, state. And my daughter, she's 12, and I cannot imagine. My mother was 11 when her mother died, and her father during this time was fighting in the Second World War. He was in Italy, and he wrote her, as you see in the film, he wrote her a postcard saying that he heard what happened to her mother. It's terrible, but he has to do important things in Italy to help rescue Jews. And she's got the kibbutz in Israel, and they're going to take care of her. And he didn't came back for 2.5 years. I cannot imagine something like that happened today. But it was a
Mm.
different era, a different
Right.
world.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Quisiera recordarles a los que nos están escuchando, pueden comentar o hacer sus preguntas a través de Facebook o YouTube en el streaming que estamos haciendo con Ron Omer, el director e hijo del sujeto de este documental que se llama Raining Her Eyes, de esta escritora de Israel muy prolífica, escritora de libros para niños y de adolescentes y que están en cualquier casa hoy en día en Israel, bueno, en su momento en los 70s, 80s y 90s. Y pues bueno, les recuerdo nada más que está esa posibilidad. Ron, going back to you in the sense of the published books, and we're in an era that is the Kindle era or the iPad era where we read everything through our computers or our cell phones or and the materiality of the books that your mother wrote kind of come from the illustrations and like all of this beautiful work that is no longer the custom. So in that sense, I wanted to ask you, is there any thoughts or plans of doing a reissue of her books, or is that something that is actually happening right now, or
Yeah,
how is
we
it
did
going
some
on?
reissues of her books. We changed the covers, we make the font bigger, we did some editing to the language, and this generation doesn't read a lot of books. My kids are a victim of screens. They watch YouTube all day and Netflix, and they don't read a lot. But I can tell you a story. When I was a kid, my mother was in a premiere in the theater, and one of the gossip columns and reporters came to her and asked her, maybe you have an idea. My daughter doesn't read books. Can you give me any idea how can I make her read? And she said, if I had a good idea, I would have tried it on my son, on me. And a week later, it was in the gossip columns that Dvorah Omer admits her son doesn't read books. And I was very
Oh,
angry about that. But so maybe every generation think about the generation that come after, that it's the end of reading and they don't read books anymore. But I hear a lot of people that still reading the books, and the kids and youth are still reading the books. It's not like it used to. But hopefully through this film, it's going to help and make people curious to read her books, her beautiful books.
Right. And is there any possibility of that becoming fiction? You know,
I
like
really
going
hope
through.
so.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it fiction, it's too much to direct. It's
Okay.
too,
Okay.
but hopefully some other directors, and there is some things happening. Um hopefully it will come to happen.
Yeah, it sounds like a really great opportunity to kind of mix like her what we see in this documentary and her life and her work mixed together. It would be something to see. um, and I would have loved to know more about how long did it take uh, to sort of address all this investigation, and um, were you familiar with all these materials that you were showing us, or is that something that you had to find again?
I was working on the film for 2.5 years, which is quite regular on a film like that. And I knew all the materials, I knew all the story. I was editing in this room when I'm talking to you, and I had all my mother books on my desk, and I was like crazy, open and closing the books, finding some parts to put in the film. And I really enjoyed working on this film. You know, the thought of being in a closed room with your dead mother for almost 2 years, it might be difficult, sounds difficult, but I really, really enjoyed working on the film, and I didn't want it to end.
Oh,
It was so much pleasure for me to work on that. And the only thing I discovered during the process of the making of the film is the diary I'm showing when she was having the dementia, when she started losing contact with the world because of the illness she had. And I was shocked to find this small diary when she wrote those amazing sentences describing what happened to her while she's losing contact with reality. It
right,
was very strong, very shocking for me.
right, right. And there's a scribbles along notebooks and like very unsettling phrases. Like I can't imagine just bringing yourself to kind of look at it up front and just showing it. It's a very amazing thing to do. um, I would have also loved, you have this one of the, let's say, dialogues that really impacted me. It was like this kind of exchange in which you took care of her and she took care of you, or is it someone, is that really how it happened, like you were in that position with her? Is that how your relationship was?
My mother, she was like a child. She stayed, I think, from this date of the shooting of her mother, she was 11, and she stayed 11 years old for the rest of her life. She was very, very sensitive. Uh, she liked to eat what children eat, you know, very basic food. She liked to drink chocolate milk. She didn't drink coffee. She didn't drink tea. She didn't smoke. She didn't drink alcohol. And she was a great mother. But we knew that we need to protect her. And she's very sensitive and very fragile. When I was growing up, I didn't feel that my mother is different. When I became a father and when I watched my wife as a mother to our kids, I understood that I had a different mom. But for me, she was the greatest. I was enjoying her. And you know, I have this sweet memory that it wasn't in the film, but when I was coming back from school, she was during lunch. She was reading to me a new story, and I believe she wanted to understand if the story is good and it's working. and for me it was magical moments. And there is one more thing I would like to tell you about. The film starts with this close-up that my mother looks into the camera for a long time. And this was part of a video art I was shooting 25 years ago. And I shot friends, and I also asked my parents to be part of it. And I didn't do anything with it. And when I was starting working on this film, I remember I have those tapes. I watched them, and I thought that I have the DNA of my mother soul in this footage, and I was very happy. So I put it inside the film. It was very strong for me.
Right. Yeah, it's very, there are several shots that are very convenient to the story that sort of it just clicked that you as well were becoming a filmmaker as she was writing her books. As you were growing up, you were also becoming, and you're an editor and you're a director now. This is your first film. Um, and yeah, so how has that been for you in terms of becoming a filmmaker, either editor or director?
You know, when you're in the role of an editor, you are the rock for the director. The director is very confused, very afraid, and you have to be the solid person who knows where the film should go to. You have to work with a big ox, you know, in the materials of the film to fight the director if needed that this part doesn't belong to the film. And when I became the director of my film, first of all, I was very afraid, and I felt that I doesn't know anything, and it was quite shocking for me. But I was keep going, keep doing, and I think I told you about the axe that you shove into the material. In this film, I brought the biggest axe I could find because I wanted my biggest fear that I'm going to make a small family film that's not going to be interested. Nobody will be interested. So I was I knew that I must to tell a story which will be a cinematic story. Uh, so my experience as an editor really helped me while I was having the hat of the director. And it was great experience, and I want to direct more films now. It was big fun for me. And you know, you're right. My mother, she was in a closed room many hours a day from the morning until we came back from school. And I'm doing the same for like 25 years. Every morning I'm going to my editing room, close the door, and dive into stories. And I'm telling stories in my editing room. And I love it. And I think it's a little bit like what my mother did. You know, my mother, most of the people doesn't understand what the editor do. And my mother, when she was really a clever person and know about culture and film, but she never completely understood what the role of the editor. And I was trying to understand, to tell her.
Wow. Yeah. No, she was an editor herself, and
Yes,
but her mind worked in a different way, and it's so beautiful that to know that she did pass that along to you, and that sort of feels like like we're seeing the story of your mother, but we're also seeing you and your story, and how that literature is not going to disappear. It's just going to take another form, be presented in another form, and it's going to be preserved. And you were saying like maybe it's a small family film, but you actually won uh, the Israeli Film Academy Best Documentary, correct?
yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know, like, this film blew up in Israel, or how was the reception?
You know, the film came out during the first Corona surrogation in Israel, and the film was accepted to the biggest documentary film festival in Israel, Doc Aviv, and people saw it online like most of your viewers is going to see the film, but gladly, because of this format, much more people was able to see the film that in ordinary year, and it was so emotional, and people wrote about it in the Facebook and all the social media, and people finished the film crying, and it was very touching for the Israeli audience because they found themselves, their childhood, their relationship with this place, their relationship with their families, their mothers, and it was very, very emotional for me to hear all those reactions. And then the film won the debut award in this Doc Aviv festival, and 2 months later it won the Academy, the Film Academy Award in Israel. And it was for me, I didn't dream. My best dream about how this film will be reacted to it. I never dreamt on this, and it was unbelievable for me.
Yeah, and now you're in competition as well. And so let's see. Good luck with that as well. We hope that our audience loves it as much as we did.
And you
And
know, I would like to hear from people that watching us now that
sí.
already watched the film. How was the impact for them? I'm very curious.
Ok. Omar, Ron quiere saber, para nuestros quienes nos estén viendo en este momento y que hayan visto el documental, si hay alguien que tenga alguna pregunta o alguna reacción acerca de la película, pueden escribirnos a través de Facebook, en los comentarios del streaming o en YouTube. Y pues bueno, vamos a esperar ahorita un poquito más para recibir sus comentarios y vamos a seguir platicando con Ron. We're going to wait for people to send us their comments while we just keep back and forth. Maybe you can invite people to watch the film. That would also be really good. I wanted to ask you, you were saying that the film got premiered during Corona, and I would love to know how it's been, like how did 2020 go for you and for people in Israel with the contingency, and how you're doing now.
You know, it's terrible, this Corona situation for everybody all over the world. In Israel, we were the first one to get the vaccination, so now we have the fourth wave of the Corona, and we're going to have the third vaccination, so hopefully we're going to come better after that. But you know, when you're making a film, you have this dream to show the film in the theater, to hear the people breathing with the film in the silence, and we didn't have this chance during the 2020. But afterwards, I'm traveling with the film in cinemas around Israel, and I meet a lot of people, a lot of audience, and it's very makes me very happy to show the people the film in real cinemas.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's also our hope. We're trying to get some comments or questions. Vamos a tener la película en Cinépolis Click. Pues tenemos la película en Cinépolis Click de forma gratuita para quienes nos están viendo, se están conectando apenas a este streaming. Estamos con Ron Omer, director de Raining Her Eyes. Si tienen algún comentario, aún y cuando haya terminado este streaming, nos lo pueden hacer saber. Les recomendamos mucho este documental. Es sobre una autora muy famosa de Israel, escritora de 98 libros para adolescentes y para niños. Estamos hablando con el director e hijo de esta autora, y que nos cuenta mucho acerca de cómo fue vivir con ella, cómo fue interactuar, toda su, pues todo el desarrollo de su obra literaria básicamente la vivió, y nos hace este documental en donde recuerda con mucho cariño y de forma muy personal eh, el trabajo de su madre, ¿no? Entonces, si no hay comentarios, pues seguimos con la plática acá con Ron. We're waiting for comments to fall. We're working on that. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you again for being with us. I know schedules can be difficult, and also people here. I don't know if English is like common for people to understand. So that's why I was trying to kind of invite people in Spanish to watch the film. And I don't know if there's any final message or words that you would like to tell our audience. That would be amazing.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching the film. And if you want to comment, you can find me on Facebook, and I'd be happy to read your comments. Thank you.
Right. Sí, Ron dice que espera que les guste mucho la película, que si tienen algún comentario lo busquen en Facebook. Ron Homer, aquí está su nombre en la pantalla. Pues nos dio mucho gusto platicar con él, su documental es increíble. Thank you so much, Ron, for your time. Thank you so much for your film. Good luck with the competition. Good luck with selections during this 2021. We hope to see the film also on streaming, on some other opportunity, the more wide version of streaming. And good luck to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you. Muchas gracias a todos por habernos acompañado. Estamos teniendo estas sesiones de preguntas y respuestas con los directores de las películas que están seleccionadas en el festival. Entonces pueden ir a Cinépolis Click. Las películas van a estar disponibles hasta el 29 de agosto de manera gratuita, y pues pueden venir y familiarizarse con el trabajo de estos directores. Muchas gracias y que estén muy bien. Nos vemos en la próxima.